Hi everyone, my name is Rahel. I work for Factory, I'm a project manager, and we build innovation hubs. So I'm just waiting for my slide to come up. In the past 6 years, I was the campus manager of our Silicon Alley campus in Berlin, and now I'm managing events at Factory Lisbon, which we recently opened last year in Portugal. So what, I don't have my clicker. Thank you. What is similar about Berlin and Lisbon is that we can really see how the creation of innovation clusters can stand at the center of transforming a city and can really help shape an a country's economic landscape. And while the beginnings of these transformation stories for Berlin and Lisbon happened a few years apart, there were some similarities. So if we go back to Berlin to the late 90s, early 2000s, it was this just recently reunited city. There was so much creative energy, but economically it was very, very weak. So this was one of the poorest regions of all of Germany. There was not a single major company calling its home. And this is when this term, arm aber sexy, so poor but sexy, was coined for Berlin. And this is Prenzlauer Berg. This is one of the hottest, most gentrified spaces in Berlin, only 20, 25 years later. And if we look at Lisbon in the early 2010s, Portugal was one of those countries that was suffering the most under the Euro crisis. So we had skyrocketing unemployment rates, an exodus of youth, and just overall a very, very depressing outlook to the coming years. But if we move forward only a few years, the narrative has completely changed, right? So Berlin emerged as one of the top startup hubs all over Europe. It attracts founders and investors from all over the world alike. And also Lisbon, it has not only weathered the storm, but then in 2016 became the proud new host of Web Summit, one of Europe's largest tech conferences. And in the past few years, we've seen increasing investments into startups in Lisbon and other regions of Portugal as well, all while the world was going through very challenging times. So, as I work for Factory, I'm often being asked, what will be the next Berlin? Where's the next Lisbon? And the answer to that question, I think, really lies in understanding the ingredients that can foster such innovation. I firmly believe that if executed strategically, innovation can flourish almost anywhere. So, of course, there's different factors we would look at when we're looking at a new city that can give you a head start. If you already have tech giants present in the city, if you have startup, VC firms active, at least in the region, if you have some administrative regulations that help, like a streamlined process to set up businesses, I could go on and on and on. There's a whole catalog of factors that, gives your city maybe a higher potential of becoming the next big innovation cluster. But what's much more important is that you really understand this unique set of characteristics these cities have and the people that live there and how you work with them and start the transformation process together. So with Factory, we have over a decade of experience in this space, and we developed this framework to basically support others in catalyzing this kind of innovation in their city. But before I dive deeper into this framework, I want to give you a brief introduction to Factory, the company. So it was basically founded when our founder, more than 10 years ago, had invested in several startups in Berlin, back when this city was still branded a copycat town. And the idea was to create synergies between these startups and bring together the most creative, visionary, entrepreneurial spirits who all agreed that Berlin could be more and do more. And landlords at the time weren't really equipped to give them an appropriate home. So with Factory, we built a product for them, an authentic place where they could build up on their ambition for impact and growth. And the name Factory, of course, comes from the factory itself, which is a symbol for the Industrial Revolution, which changed the whole world, which gave us unprecedented raises in income levels and completely transformed the society and the economy, for better or worse. And we are currently at the brink of a new digital age. And with Factory, we want to sample this symbol, this stunning architecture of these relics that are waiting to be revitalized from that age. And we want to lead by example and show what is possible if innovation is guided, moderated, and inclusive, and no longer damaging the social and planetary fabric. So, before I start talking in more detail about what are the key ingredients to create a successful innovation cluster, let me quickly define successful for us at Factory. Successful means globally recognized, profitable, sustainable, and socially compatible growth, leaving no one behind. And to help guide our thoughts, we defined 4 pillars that we use to build up in creating an innovation cluster. The first pillar is quite intuitive, of course, the people, because any place is defined by the people who reside inside it. And this is very important for any leaders behind new innovation clusters to curate the right set of people from a very early stage. This set of users or people should be diverse and international. Diverse, first and foremost, in terms of sectors. So you want government institutions, universities, research bodies, and then, of course, also private sector companies across all stages and sizes in order to create the collision of various perspectives and stakeholders in very close proximity. And while we focus on diverse and international users, it is imperative not to isolate the local community. Okay? We never build like in an empty space. There's always already a neighborhood, a community there, and we must integrate them from the very beginning. We have to reach out to the neighborhood, to local organizations, to schools, to local businesses, and make them part of our strategy. The next pillar is, of course, the place. Innovation clusters must feel genuine and authentic in their design. So what we often see with corporate innovation parks or suburban R&D centers is that they end up being these sterile glass new builds, which lack a bit this authentic character that would actually drive in the users to excitedly join that site. And what we want instead is a nice balance between the new and the old, which will help drive this sought-after, authentic character. Innovation, of course, often represents the new, but in the end, it also builds upon what's been there before, upon the old. So the place behind any innovation cluster should respect that, and as such, intertwine the new and the old into one cohesive package. When designing the master plan for a new innovation cluster, we should take the often mentioned collaboration one step further, and we should aim for collaborative collision. This means we need to take a unique approach in the design of the site. If we think about the pathways, about which spaces are private, which spaces are public, because we want all different sets of users to effectively run into each other and encourage collaboration and communication. Another important part is nature. So this is often forgotten when innovation clusters are planned. Sometimes we're lucky and we can build it inside the nature. If not, it should be added from the outside to kind of symbolize a sustainable and healthy future. And then the brand and identity are, of course, core to any innovation cluster. And this must happen both online and offline. So it must be ensured that all touch points of an innovation cluster as a brand are tied together, or otherwise you just have like these loosely woven lines on a map, but not this physical identity and driver of innovation as a tangible entity. So this not only means well-designed websites and logos, but also how all of this is translated into the physical space in terms of signage and experience of the people who are interacting with it. So while these first 2 pillars I just talked about focus on the people and the place we want to build with them, the third pillar, the product, if executed well, will work more as a support mechanism for all of the users who will be on site. There's a lot of different factors I could talk about in terms of product, and it might change depending on where your innovation cluster is or what you focus on, but I will just talk about a few of them. What's definitely needed is capital, right? Every stage of a company requires capital to accelerate growth. There are many different structures to support businesses with capital, such as venture capital, public grants, crowd investing, and many, many more. Now, some clusters may launch and offer these structures directly as part of their service and product, but the key term here really is access. So you might also choose as an innovation cluster to give access to capital. This could be by focusing on attracting venture capital firms to the site or building bridges to public institutions that offer funding. Then it's argued that smart money is better than money. Capital, of course, is only one driver to scaling business. So a strong network and mentors who can support this are perhaps, especially at the early stages of a company, much more, or as important at least. So bringing incubators and accelerators to your cluster is already a good start. But successful innovation clusters, they take this to the next stage and create this really strong set of mentors, a robust network that are accessible to all users of the cluster. And here we really have to think a bit outside the box as well. So you can bring in mentors from the arts, government, civil society. So you have more of a sounding board rather than an elitist circle of mentors. Flexibility in terms of space is key to any successful innovation cluster. So this means you want to have your companies to be able to downsize, but hopefully upsize on a very short notice. And you must be very flexible with the spaces you offer for them. One distinct problem I want to talk about is that many large innovation clusters that nobody knows what's happening inside of them. So from our work, we learned that it can really help to produce a constant stream of information in English language. And here there's many opportunities to work with larger media partners who in turn are really interested in gaining a local perspective on what is happening. Innovation clusters have the chance to greatly impact the economy in policy, society, and the environment. So creating positive impact is therefore the last significant pillar for a successful innovation cluster. And in essence, it's also the outcome of the first three if executed correctly. So on an economical level, innovation clusters often bring investment, job, money to areas that potentially otherwise wouldn't see it, right? Those are these underused, dead areas that are just waiting to be revitalized. So successful innovation clusters should focus on the regeneration and the transformation of the site and the surrounding neighborhood. And what will further the economic benefits if you sample these success stories that are happening on site and you share them with the world. But by this, you will attract more talent and investors from the outside. The process of innovation is, of course, closely tied to policy making. And oftentimes, innovators cite policy as a hindering factor to their growth. And here, innovation clusters can serve as a platform for innovators and policymakers to actually find together, to host discussions for the sake of innovation and economic growth. So this physical manifestation and tangibility of an innovation cluster serves as the ideal platform to facilitate understanding and moderating these discussions. And it is our experience that policymakers meeting innovators on a regular basis and in an established format will really help overcome some of these hurdles on both sides. On a social level, for innovators, researchers, businesses on a social mission, innovation clusters should offer some extra support. This can happen in the form of catered programs, or you can also think about offering discounted spaces under certain circumstances. Another focus should lie in supporting underserved minorities. So it goes without saying that forward-thinking innovator clusters must promote diversity, equality, and inclusion. And research shows us that companies who focus on gender and racial diversity actually perform better financially, right? And that those who focus on inclusivity and inclusion attract and retain the brightest talent. And as I mentioned earlier, when we build all these exciting new buildings and networks and programs, leaders behind innovation ecosystems must be very careful to not displace what is already there. So a social strategy that is closely linked to the inclusive growth of the whole neighborhood and the surrounding is key to any successful cluster. And without it, it will be doomed to fail. Strong focus on sustainability should, of course, be part of any new innovation cluster. There's many opportunities you can tap into here, offer programs to reduce carbon emissions, smart technology. You can set up sharing platforms and apply many aspects of the circular economy. So there's many opportunities here, and you should really tap into them because you're basically building something almost from scratch, and you can work with that. So with everything I told you in the back of our heads, let's get even more practical and get to our guide to jumpstart an innovation ecosystem. So 5 steps to catalyzing local innovation. First, we need to choose a city with the right kind of creative undertone. And this means creativity not only in the tech, digital, and startup scene, but really explicitly also in arts, music, design, and fashion. We need to understand who are the residents living in this city, what are they like, and we must understand and leverage this creative energy and then build upon it. Next, we have to find a starting point for our narrative. So a site with a compelling history or a unique selling point is helpful in supporting the early brand we want to create. And in turn, this narrative also connects with the community and potential future users, and it helps us build this sense of emotional attachment very, very early on. And then a very essential next step is gathering the local innovation scene. And we want to get them engaged actively on site. So we can start hosting events, fashion shows, exhibitions, and many more gatherings already during the construction stage. We did that in Lisbon for years before the building was even opened. And this is how we created this very strong bond with the local creative community. And we showed them what we could offer them, so for them in turn to engage with us and help us build what we wanted to build. After we've gathered all the local stakeholders, we have to look outwards to the rest of the world. Major brands will want to jump into this innovation ecosystem that we've nurtured. And while we select the right kind of international companies, we really have to think about how they can support the users, the local community that we already have on site, to see how we can accelerate collaboration and showcase this specific ecosystem to the world. And once all the stakeholders are on board, it's time to activate the site, create connections with the community and beyond. And as innovation cluster leaders, we really need to be there from day one, hosting events, creating marketing collateral, and further building emotional attachment to the site. And then if all goes well, we end up with something like this. This is our beautiful Factory Lisbon by night. Maybe some of you, while I was presenting, had the particular city or places come to mind with that kind of potential. I can tell you personally, I see plenty of opportunities, especially in this part of the world, and I can't wait to see what kind of developments there will be in the coming years. Thank you very much.